Prince forced the maid to dance on the table to ridicule her, but what she did left him speechless. Before we begin this beautiful period romance story, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing where you're joining me from. The chandeliers of Schönbrunn burned brighter than the stars that night, pouring gold upon the long tables and the faces of Vienna's nobility. Music rippled through the great hall, light and cheerful. Yet beneath the glitter of jewels and laughter there was tension, the kind that gathers wherever pride is greater than joy. At the head of the table sat Prince Leopold von Hohenberg, heir to the Austrian throne, smiling without warmth. He was young, handsome, and weary of being both. Around him the lords and ladies praised him, flattered him, toasted him for his engagement to Countess Irina von Falkenstein. She sat at his right hand, dazzling in crimson silk, her every gesture precise, her smile sharp as crystal. Leopold raised his glass, pretending not to notice her glances of expectation. He would marry her soon, as duty required, but in his heart there was only restlessness. Every compliment, every bow, every perfect note of music pressed on him like a cage. He whispered to his cousin, Count Victor, who leaned close. Another evening of empty speeches. I'd rather be buried beneath the wine barrels, Victor grinned. Then let us find amusement elsewhere, Highness. The night is young. A servant approached with a silver tray of goblets. She moved quickly, her eyes lowered, but one of the marble steps near the dais caught her heel. The tray tilted. A rain of crystal fell. The crash silenced the music. Red wine spread like spilled rubies at the prince's feet. Every eye turned toward the trembling girl. Leopold looked down, faintly annoyed, faintly entertained. "And who?" he asked, his voice cold with practiced calm. "Invited chaos to dine." The girl fell to her knees, hands shaking as she gathered the broken pieces. "Forgive me, Your Highness. It was an accident. Irina's laugh rang sharp. "A servant who cannot carry a tray should carry her shame instead," the court murmured. Leopold's mouth curved into a lazy smile. He felt the familiar thrill of command, the small cruelty that gave him momentary power. "Accidents, Countess, require consequences. Don't you agree?" "Indeed," she purred. "Something to make us all forget the noise." He glanced again at the servant. Her face was pale, her hair pulled tightly beneath a linen cap. There was nothing remarkable about her except the quiet in her eyes, eyes that did not plead, only waited. "What is your name?" he asked. "Clara, Your Highness." "Well, Clara," he said, standing so the hall could hear, "you have interrupted my celebration. Perhaps you should earn back our delight. What entertainment could you offer us?" I am only a maid, sir." Victor laughed softly. "She might sing, cousin, or juggle the shards she dropped." Leopold raised a hand, silencing the whispers. "No, I have a better idea. Since you have already danced with disaster, let us see you dance with music. Up on the table, little maid. Show us how grace survives humility." A ripple of laughter spread through the hall. Irina's eyes shone with approval. Clara froze. "Please, Your Highness, I cannot. Cannot, or will not." His tone hardened, though a part of him, small and buried, hesitated. He could have withdrawn the order. He could have laughed and dismissed her, but the eyes around him demanded a performance, and he obeyed their hunger. The queen sat further down the table, her face calm, unreadable. Leopold thought she would stop him. She did not. Clara rose slowly. Her hands trembled as she placed the broken pieces on the tray. Two guards helped her climb onto the table. The musicians waited, uncertain. Leopold nodded to the conductor. "Play something cheerful. The court must not grow bored." The first notes of a minuet floated through the air. Clara stood at the center, surrounded by silver dishes and gold candlesticks, the light trembling over her. She did not move at once. A murmur ran through the guests, impatience, mockery. Then she lifted her head. Something changed. Her posture straightened, her gaze steadied. She took one slow breath, then another, and began to move. The laughter faltered. Her steps followed the rhythm not awkwardly, but with a precision born of knowledge. Each turn flowed into the next, her arms curved like music itself. It was not the dance of a servant imitating her betters. It was the dance of someone who understood its language. Every step a phrase of grace, every motion an answer to the violins. Leopold stared. The candlelight struck her face, and he saw not fear, but serenity. He could not look away. Around him, the nobles shifted uneasily, uncertain whether to applaud or remain silent. Count Victor whispered, "Did you plan this miracle, cousin?" The prince did not answer. He felt his own jest turning against him, becoming something he did not control. Clara's feet moved lightly over the polished wood. Her skirt fluttered as she spun. The musicians, caught by her rhythm, forgot their fear and played with new passion. The hall grew silent, except for the music and the soft slide of her steps. Irina's smile died. "She mocks us," she hissed. "No," the queen murmured, though only those nearest her heard. "She remembers." The dance ended in a single, perfect motion. Clara bowed her head and curtsied, her face calm. The silence that followed was deeper than applause. Leopold found his voice at last. "Where did you learn that?" She looked up, meeting his gaze. "In silence, Your Highness, where no one thought to look." A murmur rose through the guests, half wonder, half discomfort. Leopold felt the burn of shame creep up his neck. He had meant to make her ridiculous. Instead, he had revealed his own cruelty. The queen stood, her gown whispering against the floor. Her expression was unreadable, but her voice carried authority that silenced even the whispering. "Enough entertainment for one night. The music may stop." The orchestra obeyed. Clara climbed down from the table, head bowed again, though her steps were steady. As she turned to leave, her sleeve brushed one of the goblets still lying near the edge. It rang softly, a single pure note, and the sound seemed to echo longer than it should. Leopold sat motionless. Irina spoke to him, her tone tight. "You have indulged this nonsense long enough. Dismiss her before the court forgets its place." But the prince could not speak. The girl's dance replayed in his mind, each movement, each look of quiet strength. He realized that for the first time in his life, he had been silenced not by authority, but by grace. Victor leaned closer. "You look as though you've seen a ghost." "Perhaps I have," Leopold murmured. The queen's eyes remained fixed on the servant, who now stood at the edge of the hall awaiting dismissal. There was something in her face, a memory half-formed, a familiarity she could not explain. The court began to stir, uncertain whether to laugh or to pretend admiration. The silence became unbearable. Someone dropped a spoon. The sound rang like a bell. Finally, the queen stepped forward, her voice clear enough to reach every corner of the hall. "Child," she said, "that dance you performed, who taught it to you?" The question froze the air. Every head turned toward Clara, and even the prince's breath caught as the words echoed beneath the chandeliers. Morning came softly over Vienna, touching Schönbrunn with pale light that could not erase the whispers born of the previous night. The banquet had ended in confusion. No one could decide whether it had been a triumph or a scandal. Servants repeated the story in corridors, embellishing details until it sounded like legend. Some said the maid had bewitched the prince. Others swore she was an impostor. And through all the rumor ran one clear question: who had taught a kitchen girl to dance like that? In the queen's chambers, calm reigned only in appearance. Queen Amalia sat at her writing desk, reading reports that no longer interested her. Her thoughts circled the girl from the banquet, the look of quiet pride in her eyes. The queen had seen that expression once before, long ago, in another face. When the door opened, she looked up sharply. Her lady-in-waiting entered with a bow. "Your Majesty, the maid from last night awaits outside. She expects dismissal." "Let her in," said the queen. Clara entered, her hands folded tightly before her apron. The morning light made her look even paler, but her eyes were steady. "Your Majesty sent for me." The queen studied her a long moment. "They tell me you were in the kitchens for over a year, and yet not once did anyone notice your talent. How does that happen?" "I had no reason to show it," Clara answered quietly. "A servant's grace is in silence." You danced a court dance, child. Not a peasant reel. Where did you learn it? Clara hesitated. My mother taught me before she died. The Queen's fingers tightened on the armrest. Your mother's name? Anna Weiss. The name struck like a chord from memory, faint but resonant. The Queen nodded slowly. Return to your duties for now. You will serve in my household instead of the kitchens. Report to the head chamberlain. Clara blinked, surprised. Your Majesty, I thought I was to be dismissed. I decide who is dismissed, the Queen said gently. Go, and speak of last night to no one. When the door closed, the Queen leaned back, her thoughts spinning. Anna Weiss. The name belonged to another world, one she had tried to forget. She rose abruptly and called for her chamberlain. Fetch me the old family records. The year 1768. The matter of Baron von Weiss. In the same hour, Countess Irina stalked through the royal garden like a storm. She found Leopold there, pacing near the fountain. His face was drawn, sleepless. So it is true, she said sharply. You made that kitchen girl the talk of Vienna. He sighed. Spare me, Irina. I am already drowning in their gossip. You have humiliated me before the court, she continued. You turned a feast of our betrothal into a circus for your amusement. He turned toward her. My amusement? That was not amusement, Irina. It was madness, and I wish I could undo it. Undo it? You think regret will cleanse scandal? Her voice trembled with anger. Dismiss her. Send her away before she infects your reputation. Leopold's tone softened. It was I who erred, not she. Irina stared at him, astonished. You defend her? I defend decency, he said. Something I forgot last night. She drew herself up. If you will not act, I shall speak to your mother. She will not protect a servant. Leopold watched her leave. He felt trapped between shame and curiosity. The image of Clara's dance haunted him, her calm defiance burning brighter in memory. He tried to return to his duties, but her face followed him through every corridor. Later that day, he crossed paths with her by chance in the gallery overlooking the gardens. She carried a basket of linens and moved quickly, hoping to avoid him. He stepped into her path. Wait, he said. Clara. She stopped, eyes lowered. Your Highness, I owe you an apology. There is no need. There is, he insisted. I wronged you before everyone. I cannot rest until... She interrupted softly. Princes do not apologize to servants. Then let me be something less than a prince for a moment, he said. Her eyes lifted. For an instant, he saw not fear, but pity. If you wish to be less than a prince, then learn silence as servants do, she said quietly, and walked away. Leopold stood motionless, her words echoing through him like music. Silence as servants do. He realized he had never known silence in all his life. In the Queen's study, the chamberlain returned with a bundle of old documents. The Queen opened them one by one, reading quickly. The name Weiss appeared again and again. Baron Heinrich von Weiss, a loyal officer, accused of aiding a conspiracy 15 years ago. His property seized, his family vanished. No trial, only disappearance. The Queen remembered the night clearly now. The fear, the secrecy, the order given to protect a child with eyes the color of morning frost. She closed the folder and pressed her hand to her brow. Heinrich, what have we done? She murmured. And what became of your child? Evening fell, and Schönbrunn glowed once more with candlelight, though quieter than before. In the servants' hall, gossip flared again. Clara ignored it, folding linen, her mind distant. One of the maids, Greta, whispered, They say the Queen saved you. She must like your dance. Clara shook her head. The Queen owes me nothing. But the Countess, she's furious. She says you'll be sent away. Let her be furious, Clara said. I have work. But even as she spoke, the door opened and the Queen's messenger entered. Clara Weiss, he announced. Her Majesty requests your presence. The servants fell silent as she followed him through the corridors, her heart thudding. The Queen awaited her in the private library, a single candle burning beside stacks of documents. Come here, the Queen said. Do you know this man? She held out an old miniature portrait of a gentleman in military uniform. Clara studied it. No, Majesty. I have never seen him. He is Baron Heinrich von Weiss, the last to bear your name before you. My father was a farmer, Clara said slowly. Was he? The Queen's voice softened. Child, where were you born? Clara hesitated. I do not know. My mother never spoke of it. We moved often, hiding from debt, she said. The Queen leaned back, studying her. Debt or danger? Perhaps both. Clara looked bewildered. Why does my name matter, Your Majesty? Because, the Queen murmured half to herself, it may matter to the throne. She waved her hand gently. Go, continue your duties, but tell no one of this conversation. As Clara left, confusion clouded her mind. She returned to her small room and sat by the narrow window. The city lights shone beyond the palace gardens. She tried to recall her earliest memory, but there was only her mother's voice singing softly, and a rhythm, like steps, like music. Days passed. The Queen's favor toward her became a subject of open talk. Nobles eyed her when she entered the hall. Servants curtsied too quickly, fearful or jealous. Clara endured it silently, focusing on her work. Yet sometimes, as she crossed the corridors, she felt the prince's gaze upon her, unspoken, distant. One afternoon, while carrying a tray of letters to the library, she nearly collided with him at the doorway. He caught her arm to steady her. Forgive me, he said. She drew back at once. Your Highness. You avoid me, he said quietly. Am I so frightening? No, sir, but talk follows me enough without your help. He gave a short laugh. Then let us make the gossips mad. Walk with me in the garden. She stared at him. That would be improper. Everything I do is improper lately. Come. Against her better judgment, she followed him. They walked between the trimmed hedges in silence until he spoke again. I cannot forget that night. Neither can I, she replied. I thought I was mocking you, he said. But you mocked me instead, though kindly. You showed me what dignity is. I showed you nothing, she said. You chose to see. He smiled faintly. Then perhaps I am learning. They stopped beside the fountain. The water caught the sunset, scattering gold across their faces. He looked at her, and she felt the weight of his gaze, not cruel, not commanding, but searching. If my mother had not intervened, they would have punished you, he said. Does that not frighten you? It used to, she answered. Now I fear only what silence hides. He wanted to ask what she meant, but she turned away and left him standing by the fountain. That evening, Irina confronted the Queen in her private chamber. Your Majesty, she said coldly, I must speak plainly. The girl Clara has become a scandal. Your son's behavior encourages gossip unfit for the crown. The Queen replied calmly. You exaggerate, Countess. My son shows curiosity, not affection. Curiosity, Irina said sharply, is the seed of disgrace. Amalia's eyes cooled. Are you jealous, Countess? Irina flushed. I am concerned for the throne. Then leave the throne to those who carry its weight, the Queen said. And remember, the dignity of a lady lies in patience. Irina left, trembling with anger. As she passed through the hall, she nearly collided with Leopold himself. Your mother shelters her, she hissed. If you do not send that girl away, I shall expose whatever secret binds them. Leopold watched her go, puzzled. Secret, he murmured. That night, unable to sleep, the Queen sat alone at her desk. She opened one of the old letters sealed with the imperial crest. It was a confession written by her husband years ago, explaining how Baron Weiss had been wrongly accused. The evidence had been false, the punishment unjust. The Queen felt tears burn her eyes. And now his child stands before me, she whispered. Heinrich, your blood walks my halls. She rose, pacing the room, torn between confession and silence. If the truth came out, it would shame the throne, but to hide it again felt like betrayal. She went to the window, watching the moonlit courtyard below. There, in the shadows, she saw two figures, her son and the maid, walking apart but toward the same gate. Fate was drawing its lines again. In the servants' quarters, Clara prepared for bed when Greta slipped inside. You're in danger, she whispered. The Countess is spreading word that you're no maid at all. She says you tricked the queen with lies. Clara frowned. Why would she care about me? Because the prince looks at you, Greta said simply. And she cannot bear it. Before Clara could answer, a knock sounded. The queen's messenger entered again, holding a sealed envelope. From Her Majesty, he said. Deliver this to no one but the queen herself tomorrow morning. It was found under her door. He left as quickly as he came. Clara looked at the black seal, strange and unbroken. She placed it on the table beside her bed and tried to sleep, but unease kept her awake. When dawn touched the window, she carried the letter to the queen's apartments. The queen received her at once, still in her robe. Thank you, child, she said, taking the envelope. She broke the seal, read the single line inside, and froze. Her hand trembled. The page held only 6 words, written in a hand she remembered from years past. The child of vice still lives. The first snow of December dusted Schönbrunn like flour over pastry, and the palace thrummed with preparations for the winter ball. Servants carried garlands of evergreen, musicians tuned their instruments, and tailors stitched through the night. The ball would celebrate Prince Leopold's engagement to Countess Irina, though beneath the chatter ran a second story, the whispers about the maid who had danced like a duchess. Clara felt those whispers wherever she went. In the corridors, in the laundry rooms, even in the chapel where she sought silence, they followed her. The queen had not spoken of the letter again, nor mentioned the name Vice, yet her eyes lingered on Clara more than before. Sometimes she would ask Clara to read correspondence aloud, as if listening to her voice confirmed something only she knew. One morning, while Clara arranged the queen's writing table, the older woman said quietly, "Do you remember your mother's voice, child?" "Only her songs," Clara replied. She would hum when she cooked, always the same tune. The queen turned sharply. "Can you hum it?" Clara did so, softly. The melody floated through the air, simple, delicate. The queen's eyes glistened. "That was a lullaby of the court," she murmured. "It was sung to noble children, not to peasants." "How did she learn it?" Clara hesitated. "She said it reminded her of someone she once served." "I never asked who." The queen closed the ink bottle with trembling hands. "Keep that song, Clara. It may guard you one day." That afternoon, Leopold inspected the ballroom with Count Victor, pretending interest while his mind strayed elsewhere. The memory of Clara's dance still haunted him. He had tried to forget it, burying himself in duty and meetings, but the image returned unbidden. Her feet moving like water, her face lit by defiance. Victor noticed his distraction. "Thinking of your bride?" Leopold gave a humorless smile. "If you mean Irina, then no." "Careful, cousin. She carries half the empire's gossip on her tongue. You'll be the subject of it soon." "Let them talk," Leopold muttered. "I've already been the fool once." Victor laughed softly. "A fool who learned something, perhaps." Leopold did not answer. Later, as he left the hall, he caught sight of Clara crossing the corridor with a basket of folded linens. On impulse, he followed. "Clara," he called. She turned, startled. "Your Highness, you're avoiding me again." "I have no reason to seek you, sir." "Then I must give you one. Will you walk with me a moment? People will see." "Let them," he said. The same stubborn tone that once ordered her to dance. They stepped into the garden, the air sharp with winter. The fountains had frozen into crystal shapes. They walked in silence until he said, "I am not proud of that night." "I believe you," she replied. "I mean to say, I think of it every day. Not the laughter, not the shame, only the moment you stopped being afraid." "I was afraid," she said quietly. "But there are fears greater than ridicule. What could be greater than that? Losing who you are," she said. He looked at her intently. "And who are you, Clara?" "A servant," she said, though the words sounded uncertain even to her. He smiled faintly. "You speak as if you're still deciding." Before she could reply, footsteps crunched on the gravel behind them. Countess Irina appeared, her cloak sweeping the path. "How touching," she said coldly. "A prince and his charity case." Leopold's jaw tightened. "You forget yourself, Irina." "No, Highness. I remember perfectly who I am. The woman you are to marry." And who she is, the woman who has no place here. Clara bowed. Forgive me, Countess. I meant no offense. Then you'll mean none by leaving, Irina said sharply. At once, Leopold stepped between them. Enough. You will not command my servants. Irina's eyes blazed. Servants, yes. But is she truly one? Or something else entirely? I've heard strange things about her name, her manners, her silence. What are you hiding, Leopold? Be careful, he warned. I am careful, she said. And if you will not protect your family's honor, I will. She swept away, her footsteps fading through the snow. Clara looked at him anxiously. You should not have defended me. Why not? Because she will hate me more for it. She already does, he said simply. Let her hate. It will teach her that cruelty is not power. But Clara knew Irina's hatred would not rest. The Countess was too proud, too clever to let humiliation pass unpunished. Days later, while arranging decorations for the ball, Clara overheard two maids whispering. The Countess has spies, one said. She sent them to the city to find out where that girl came from. Clara's hands froze around a ribbon. She forced herself to continue working. If Irina sought her past, she might uncover more than rumor. And what if the Queen's silence meant the truth was dangerous? That evening, the Queen summoned her again. Child, I have something to tell you, she began, but stopped when the Chamberlain entered. He bowed low. Your Majesty, the Countess requests your presence regarding tomorrow's ceremony. The Queen sighed. We shall speak later, she said to Clara. Until then, stay near me. Do you understand? Clara nodded, though unease tightened her chest. The next day, the palace brimmed with carriages, candles, perfume, and gossip. The winter ball had arrived. Clara worked among the servants, setting goblets and arranging flowers, while nobles arrived in a cascade of silk and jewels. The orchestra tuned. The scent of wax and roses filled the air. From the balcony, Leopold watched the guests. Irina stood beside him, radiant but tense. Smile, she whispered. They must see us happy. He smiled mechanically. Happiness can be an illusion, Countess. It is one we must sell, she said. When the Queen entered, the hall bowed. Clara followed a few paces behind, carrying her fan and gloves. The Queen's eyes brushed hers briefly, a silent reassurance. The first courses were served. The musicians began to play, and conversation flowed. But beneath the polite laughter, rumor simmered. More than one noble leaned toward another to whisper of the maid who had dared to dance weeks before. Some claimed she had noble blood. Others called her a witch. Countess Irina enjoyed every whisper she could control. She had planned her moment carefully. When the orchestra paused before the first waltz, she stood. Your Highness, she said sweetly, perhaps it would please the court if we repeated the entertainment of your last banquet. Shall your maid perform again? A murmur rose. The Queen's expression darkened. Leopold answered evenly, the court needs no mockery tonight. But it loves spectacle, Irina pressed. And your servant has already shown herself quite skilled. Why not give us another display? Clara's face flushed. She stepped back, wishing the floor would swallow her. Leopold's voice cut through the tension. If there must be a dance, Countess, I shall choose my partner. Irina laughed. Then choose. The court is waiting. He turned slowly, his gaze finding Clara among the servants. She froze as he descended the steps toward her. Murmurs rippled through the hall. He stopped before her, extended his hand, and said clearly, Dance with me. Gasps echoed against the gilded ceiling. The musicians looked to the Queen, who neither nodded nor shook her head. Irina's face drained of color. Clara whispered, Your Highness, I cannot. You can, he said softly. For once, let the truth move instead of silence. The Queen's eyes met Clara's, calm, commanding. Clara took a breath, set down the fan, and placed her hand in his. Together they walked to the center of the hall. The conductor hesitated, then raised his bow. The waltz began, slow and tentative. Leopold guided her gently. At first her steps faltered, uncertain under so many eyes. Then the music lifted her. The rhythm returned like memory, graceful and sure. Around them, nobles whispered in disbelief. The queen's gaze softened, with something close to pride. As they turned through the dance, Leopold said under his breath, "Whatever they see, I see only you." "Do not say such things," she murmured. "Why not?" "Because they will destroy you for it." "Then let them try," he said. The waltz quickened. The hall dissolved into music. For those few minutes, rank and fear vanished. When the final note fell, they stopped. Silence followed, heavier than applause. Then came a slow clap from Irina. "Marvelous," she said coldly. "A prince and his mystery girl. Shall we thank her properly?" Leopold released Clara's hand. "Enough." "No, Highness. The people deserve truth." She turned to the crowd. "Do you all know who this girl is? Nor do I. But I intend to find out. For a palace that shelters strangers risks its own ruin." The queen's voice cut through the air. "Countess, you forget yourself." "I forget nothing, Majesty. I protect what you seem determined to endanger." Gasps spread. Leopold's hands clenched at his sides. "You speak treason against your own court," he said. "I speak warning," she replied. "Ask her where she was born. Ask her who her father was. Ask her why she carries the name Weiss." The queen rose. "Enough, Irina." But Irina's triumph glimmered in her eyes. "If she is innocent, she will answer." Clara stood silent, pale as the snow outside. Her lips parted, but no words came. The queen stepped forward. "You will have your answer soon, Countess." Irina smiled thinly. "I shall look forward to it." The queen turned to the guests. "The dance is ended. You will remember this night for its music, not its malice." The orchestra resumed hesitantly, but conversation had shifted from laughter to speculation. Clara bowed her head and slipped away through the side door, her heart pounding. Leopold followed minutes later, finding her in the corridor outside the ballroom. "You should not have left alone," he said. "I could not breathe in there," she whispered. He reached for her hand, then stopped himself. "My mother will protect you." "And who will protect her?" Clara asked. "The Countess has power. Power without honor is weakness," he said. "We will face her together." She shook her head. "No, Highness. I must face my own past before anyone else does." Before he could answer, a servant approached and bowed. "Your Majesty requests your presence, Highness, both of you." They followed him to the Queen's private chamber. Amalia stood by the window, the firelight catching her profile. On the table lay several old letters and a miniature portrait. "The time for silence is over," she said. "Clara, you must hear what I have discovered." Clara's voice trembled. "About my name?" "About your life," the Queen said. "You are Clara von Weiss, daughter of Baron Heinrich von Weiss. Your father died protecting this crown when others betrayed it. I hid the truth to keep you safe. I never thought we would meet again." Clara stared, unable to speak. Leopold turned to his mother, astonished. "Then last night's cruelty was done to one of our own?" The Queen nodded. "To blood as loyal as ours." Footsteps sounded outside. A page entered, breathless. "Your Majesty, the Countess demands audience. She says she knows everything." The Queen's eyes darkened. "Then she will learn the truth from me." The page bowed. "She waits in the ballroom." Leopold looked at Clara, then at his mother. "Let us end this, once and for all." Together they walked back toward the hall, the music fading behind them, the whispers swelling. The doors opened, and all eyes turned as the Queen entered, her son beside her, the girl between them. Irina stood at the center, pale but defiant. The court gathered around like vultures scenting a feast. The Queen lifted her chin and said clearly, "Tonight, Vienna shall hear who she is." The ballroom was hushed when the Queen spoke. The chandeliers shimmered above, their light trembling over every astonished face. The musicians lowered their bows, waiting. Countess Irina stood motionless, her fan frozen in her hand. Leopold moved closer to his mother, but Amalia raised a hand, steady, commanding. "Listen well," she said, her voice echoing through the golden hall. "For years I have carried a silence heavier than any crown. It concerns the name Weiss, and the blood that name carries. Clara stood beside her, pale, her eyes on the floor. The crowd shifted uneasily, curiosity sharpening into awe. Baron Heinrich von Weiss, the Queen continued, was once among the bravest defenders of this realm. He and his family paid the price for another's treachery. He died falsely accused of conspiracy, while those truly guilty walked free. To protect his only child from vengeance, I hid her. I entrusted her to loyal hands, far from court, with a new name and no past. A collective murmur swept the room. Irina's lips parted in disbelief. Leopold's eyes widened, then softened as he turned toward Clara. The Queen's gaze moved across the nobles like judgment itself. That child stands before you now. Clara Weiss is no servant. She is the rightful daughter of Baron Heinrich von Weiss, heir to a name that deserves restoration and respect. Gasps rippled through the hall. Some nobles crossed themselves, others stared as if they beheld a ghost. Irina's voice broke through the silence, sharp and incredulous. You expect us to believe this story? A hidden noble child in a kitchen apron? Convenient. The Queen's tone cut like glass. Believe what you wish, Countess. The proof rests in the royal archives and in my own hand. The portrait, the records, the seal. All confirm what I say. She motioned to a page who stepped forward bearing a small wooden box. The Queen opened it, revealing the miniature portrait of a man with the same calm eyes as Clara. Irina's face lost its color. Still, she forced a laugh. Then she deceived us all, playing at humility while plotting her return. Clara looked up, her voice steady, though her hands trembled. I deceived no one. I never knew who I was until this night. My mother told me only that silence kept us safe. Her words rang clear, without bitterness. The court listened, spellbound. Leopold stepped forward, facing the crowd, and it was I who broke that silence with cruelty. I who mocked her before you all. I stand guilty of the greater shame. The nobles murmured, shifting in discomfort. No prince had ever spoken so humbly before them. Irina's fan snapped shut. You humiliate yourself for her? For truth, he said. The Queen turned to her son. Leopold, what would you do, knowing who she is now? He met her eyes. What my heart already decided, long before I knew her name. Irina gave a small, sharp laugh. Then the farce is complete. A prince will wed a laundress with noble ancestors lost in dust. Enough, the Queen said, her voice rising. Your envy dishonors the title you bear. The engagement is annulled. The hall erupted in gasps. Irina's hand flew to her throat. Annulled? You cannot. I can, and I do, the Queen replied. You will leave Vienna within the week. Irina looked around for support, but found none. Faces that had once smiled at her now turned away. Her voice cracked. This is madness. The court will laugh at you all. No, said Leopold quietly. The court will remember who taught them humility. Irina's eyes blazed with fury. You'll regret this, all of you. She turned sharply and swept from the hall, her crimson gown trailing behind like a flame fading into shadow. When the doors closed, the silence returned, heavier than before. The Queen stepped forward, facing Clara. Your father's honor is restored. The wrong done to him is undone tonight. If you wish, you may reclaim your title and estate. The crown will see it done. Clara looked at her, stunned. Your Majesty, I never wanted a title. I only wanted to belong where I could do no harm. You have done none, said the Queen softly. You have reminded us what nobility truly means. Leopold took a hesitant step toward her. Clara, forgive me, for the dance, for the pride, for everything I was before you. She looked at him with tears gathering in her eyes. There is nothing to forgive. We both learned what we needed to learn. Still, he said, his voice breaking, I cannot live another day without your pardon. She smiled faintly. Then you have it. The Queen watched them quietly, emotion glistening in her gaze. You both have walked through humiliation and found grace. Perhaps that is the true inheritance of the Weiss blood and of the crown. The orchestra began to play again, softly. as if uncertain whether the night could still hold music. The Queen turned to the guests. "The celebration continues. Let us honor truth rather than pretense." One by one, the courtiers bowed. The tension dissolved into cautious applause. Servants hurried to refill glasses. Yet the air had changed. Laughter now carried respect instead of mockery. Clara stood beside Leopold, unsure whether to stay or vanish into the shadows. He sensed her hesitation. "You need not hide any more," he said. "The world sees you now as you are." "But do you?" she asked. He paused. "I see you more clearly than I see myself." The Queen's eyes softened. "Go," she whispered to them both. "The night belongs to you now." They stepped away from the crowd, through the open balcony doors where the winter air met candlelight. Snowflakes drifted through the darkness. The city spread below them, silent and endless. Leopold leaned against the railing, his breath visible in the cold. "When I was a boy, my tutor said a prince must never bend. Tonight I bent for the first time, and I think I found peace in it." Clara smiled faintly. "Then perhaps he taught you wrong. Perhaps you taught me right," he said. Behind them, the orchestra began a new melody, one that rose and fell like a memory. It was the same tune Clara's mother had sung, though no one but the Queen recognized it. She closed her eyes, whispering a prayer for the souls of the past. Clara looked back through the doors at the Queen, who watched with quiet pride. "She knew my parents," Clara said softly. "I saw it in her face." "She hid you to save you," Leopold replied, "and in saving you, she saved me." They stood in silence, the snow collecting on the marble rail. Clara's heart beat fast. The hall behind them filled again with laughter, softer now, warmer. The Queen approached once more, her cloak wrapped against the cold. "There is one thing left to do," she said. "Tomorrow the court will record your restoration. After that, your future is your own." Clara nodded, still dazed. "Your Majesty, I owe you everything." "You owe me nothing," said the Queen. "But you owe your father the life he would have wanted for you. Live it with courage." She turned to her son. "And you, remember that compassion rules longer than fear." He bowed his head. "I will try, Mother." "Do more than try," she said gently. "Do better." The Queen returned to the ballroom, leaving them in the quiet winter air. The music swelled, filling the palace with renewed joy. Clara looked at Leopold. "I should thank you, though I don't know how." "Then don't," he said. "Just don't disappear again." She laughed softly. "That depends on whether you give me reason to stay." He smiled, his breath misting in the cold. "Then I'll find one." The church bells of Vienna rang faintly in the distance, marking midnight. Inside, servants relit the candles, guests began to dance again, and laughter echoed where shame had once lingered. Leopold extended his hand, a gesture both formal and tender. "Will you dance again, Clara von Weiss? Not on a table, but on your own ground this time." She hesitated only a heartbeat before taking his hand. "If you promise not to make a spectacle of it." "I promise," he said. They stepped back into the ballroom, where the floor gleamed under the chandeliers. The Queen watched from her chair, smiling as they joined the waltz. The crowd parted instinctively, allowing them space. The music carried them in sweeping turns. Every movement spoke of forgiveness, of beginnings instead of endings. The same court that once mocked now watched in reverence. For a moment, all difference vanished. Only the rhythm remained. When the last note faded, applause erupted, sincere and thunderous. Clara curtsied, and Leopold bowed beside her. They exchanged a look filled with quiet understanding. The Queen rose, her voice calm but full of warmth. "Let the record show that tonight justice was done and mercy triumphed where cruelty once stood. Let the past rest." A cheer followed, echoing through the palace corridors and spilling out into the snowy night. The ball continued until dawn. But when the candles burned low and the guests drifted away, the Queen, the Prince, and Clara remained in the hall, speaking softly of what would come next. Plans for restoration, for peace, for a life no longer hidden. When the first light touched the windows, the Queen smiled. "It is finished. Let tomorrow begin." And as the music faded and the palace settled into silence, Only one thought filled the hearts of those who had witnessed the night's miracle. That love, once buried in shame, had been born again in grace. Dawn came gently over Schönbrunn, painting the marble corridors in gold. The palace, after the storm of the previous night, breathed quietly. Servants moved softly, as if afraid to break the fragile calm. The great ballroom still smelled of roses and candle smoke. Only a few wilted petals on the floor gave any sign of the spectacle that had changed everything. Clara stood by the fountain in the palace gardens, her cloak wrapped tightly around her shoulders. The snow had begun to melt, and thin streams ran between the stones. She gazed at the water's surface, still unsure if the night before had been real. She touched the edge of her sleeve, half expecting to find it coarse with kitchen ash again instead of soft silk. She heard the crunch of footsteps behind her. She did not need to turn to know who it was. "You found me," she said quietly. Leopold's voice was gentle. "I would have searched the whole palace if I had to." She turned then, meeting his eyes. He looked different. No longer the restless prince who had mocked her, but a man stripped of pride, uncertain yet steady. "You should be with the Queen," she said. "The court will need you today. There will be questions. Let them ask," he replied. "For once I have answers." She smiled faintly. "And what answer will you give when they ask what you intend to do with me?" He moved closer, his breath visible in the morning air. "Tell them I intend to ask for forgiveness, and if heaven allows, for love." Her eyes softened. "Forgiveness you already have. Love, I am not sure it belongs to princes. It belongs to those who earn it," he said, "and I would spend the rest of my life earning it from you." The garden was silent except for the sound of the fountain. A ray of sunlight caught the frost on the marble, scattering tiny sparks of light around them. Clara lowered her eyes, torn between joy and disbelief. "You think words can wash away what you did?" she asked quietly. "No," he said, "but perhaps actions can." He removed his gloves and took her hand carefully, as if afraid she might vanish. "You said once that silence keeps servants safe. I believed in silence too. Silence that protects pride, that hides truth. I don't want it anymore." Her hand trembled in his. "And what will you do without it?" "Speak," he said simply, "even if the whole world listens." She looked at him for a long time. Then very softly she said, "Then speak now, before the world wakes." He drew a breath. "Clara von Weiss, you changed me more than the crown ever could. You made me see what honor means, what humility is. You turned my shame into hope. I love you, not because of your name, not because the Queen blesses it, but because you saw me when I could not see myself." Tears welled in her eyes. "You are not the man who humiliated me anymore." "I hope not," he said, "but I am still the man who needs you." She shook her head, smiling through tears. "You are very bold." "Only with you," he said. The church bells of Vienna began to ring in the distance, the sound carrying across the gardens. Clara lifted her head. "Do you hear that? It sounds like forgiveness," he murmured. "Perhaps," she said, her voice breaking into a small laugh, "or perhaps it is the city gossiping about us again." He laughed too, and the sound broke the last of the tension between them. "Let them talk. Let them say the prince fell in love with the maid who danced. You should not call me that anymore." "Then what shall I call you?" She hesitated, her cheeks warming. "Just Clara. It is the name my mother gave me before I belonged to anyone else." "Then I will call you Clara," he said, "and you will call me nothing at all if it means you'll stay." Before she could answer, the Queen appeared at the far end of the path, her cloak sweeping over the stones. Her smile was calm, knowing. "I thought I would find you both here," she said. "The council has gathered. They await your decision, Leopold." He turned to her, still holding Clara's hand. "Then they shall have it. I will not marry Countess Irina or any woman chosen for alliance. My choice is before you." The Queen's eyes softened. "You are certain?" "With all that I am." She looked at Clara, her expression kind. "And you, child? You have lived too long by others' choices. Will you make one of your own now?" Clara's heart raced. She looked at the Queen, then at Leopold. "I would choose peace, And wherever he is, I find it." The queen nodded, understanding. "Then peace you shall have. I will speak to the council. They will protest, of course, but they will yield." She reached for Clara's hands. "Your father would be proud. He believed in honor over blood. You have restored both." "Thank you, Majesty," Clara whispered. "Majesty no longer," the queen said softly. "Call me Amalia, just once." Clara smiled. "Then thank you, Amalia." The queen's eyes shone, and she turned away before emotion betrayed her composure. "The ceremony will be arranged at dawn tomorrow in the garden chapel. Simple, quiet, and worthy of you both." When she left, silence returned. Clara looked at Leopold, startled. "Tomorrow?" "Too soon?" he teased gently. She laughed. "Too soon, too certain, too. Everything." He took her hand again, more firmly this time. "I've wasted too much of my life waiting to be certain. You're the first thing I've ever been sure of." The day passed in a blur. Word of the queen's announcement spread quickly through the palace. Some courtiers whispered in shock. Others smiled secretly, happy to see pride defeated by grace. Servants polished silver and tied ribbons, not daring to gossip aloud. That night, Clara sat in her chamber, staring at her reflection. The queen's maid entered quietly, carrying a gown of pale blue satin. "Her Majesty says you must wear this tomorrow." Clara touched the fabric, speechless. "It's too fine for me." "It's just fine for a bride," the maid said with a grin. "Bride," Clara repeated, the word tasting strange and beautiful on her tongue. She lay awake long after midnight, listening to the faint strains of music drifting from the ballroom, where the guests still celebrated. She thought of her mother, of the nights spent hiding from fear, of the dance that had changed her life. And somewhere between memory and hope, she fell asleep smiling. The morning came bright and clear, as if the heavens themselves had decided to bless the day. The garden chapel behind Schönbrunn was small, built of pale stone and ivy. Snow sparkled along the path, but the air was gentle. Leopold waited by the altar in a plain uniform, no crown, no medals. Only the look of a man who had found something worth bowing to. The queen stood near him, surrounded by a few witnesses and the priest. When Clara appeared, the garden seemed to pause. The light caught in her hair, and the soft blue of her gown moved like the sky itself. The queen drew a quiet breath. Leopold forgot the air in his lungs. She walked toward him slowly, her steps steady. When she reached him, he whispered, "You are unreal." She smiled. "And yet you still made me climb a table." He laughed softly. "If I could take that back." "You already have," she said. The ceremony began. The priest's words were simple, almost forgotten in the quiet between them. When the time came for vows, Leopold took her hands and spoke first. "I once thought a crown was the measure of a man," he said. "But I was wrong. It is measured by whom he bows to. I bow to you, Clara, not because of your birth, but because you taught me how to stand." Tears slipped down her cheeks. She answered, "And I once thought freedom meant being unseen, but you saw me. Even when I wished to disappear, you gave me courage to be known." The priest blessed them, and the queen smiled through her tears. The small crowd murmured with joy as Leopold lifted Clara's hands to his lips. The bells of Vienna began to ring again, louder this time, carrying across the snow. Afterward, they walked through the gardens as husband and wife. The queen followed a few steps behind, letting them move ahead. The city stretched before them in pale morning light. "Does it feel real?" he asked. She nodded. "It feels like a story that finally decided to end well. And if it ever tries to end otherwise, then we'll dance until it remembers," she said. He laughed and pulled her close. "You'll never tire of dancing, will you?" "Not with you." They stopped by the fountain, where everything had begun. The water shimmered in the sunlight, clear and still. He kissed her hand. "When I first saw you, I thought you were beneath me. I was wrong. You were above everything I'd ever known." She touched his cheek, smiling. "And now?" "Now," he said, "I see that we stand on the same ground." The queen approached them, her voice full of warmth. "You have given this kingdom something rarer than peace. You've given it hope." "Hope," Clara repeated softly. "Yes, that's what it feels like." Amalia looked up at the sky. Your father would have wanted this day. He believed goodness always returns even after darkness. Clara's eyes filled again. Then perhaps he's watching. I'm certain he is, said the Queen. They stood together for a moment, silent, until Leopold turned to the Queen. Mother, you have done more than restore a name. You've restored your son. She smiled and touched his arm. Then my task is finished. When she walked away, leaving them alone again, Clara looked up at him. What now, Your Highness? Now, he said, drawing her close. Now we live. He kissed her, softly, reverently, like a promise spoken in silence. The snow melted around their feet as the sun climbed higher. The musicians from the night before began to play again on the terrace, their notes drifting through the garden. Without a word, Clara lifted her hand, and he took it. They began to waltz. No audience, no laughter, only wind and light and the faint ring of bells. The melody rose, the same that had once humiliated her, now transformed into their vow. Their steps moved together, easy and sure, a circle of forgiveness. When the music ended, he whispered, "Every king should learn to dance." "And every dancer," she replied, smiling, "should learn to rule a heart." He laughed quietly, resting his forehead against hers. "Then rule mine. It's already yours." She looked into his eyes, unafraid, and answered, "And you, guard mine, forever." The bells rang one last time, bright and clear over Vienna. The wind carried the sound through the city, across the river, and into the sky, where the clouds parted for sunlight. And in the garden of Schönbrunn, the prince and the maid, now equals, now free, stood hand in hand beneath the morning light that belonged only to them. Thank you so much for listening to this story, all the way to the end. We hope it moved you as much as it moved us while telling it. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave us a comment telling us where you're listening from and what you liked the most. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like as a show of support. That really motivates us to keep creating and sharing more stories full of emotion and life lessons. And before we go, we want to remind you that an exciting and heartwarming story recommendation will appear on the final screen. If you'd like to enjoy it, just click on the video. Thank you once again for being here, and we'll see you in the next story.